SQL Workshop is a module that allows you to view and manage database objects. You can create objects, you can drop objects, you can truncate objects, you can go in and look at the data. You can also create things like packages and procedures and functions. And there are also a number of features that allow you to do things like save scripts. So SQL Workshop is the second of the 4 modules in Oracle Application. You can click on the button, or up at the top you can click the drop-down arrow. So if you want to click on the button, that will open up another page. If you click on the SQL Workshop drop-down arrow, you'll notice that you have the option of going to several different places inside SQL Workshop. So the button method is more of a drill-down approach, and the SQL Workshop arrow method allows you to navigate quickly without having to drill through multiple screens. In this demonstration, I wanted to show you how to use SQL Workshop. You may either click on the button here, or you may click on the tab SQL Workshop at the top, or you may click on the drop-down arrow and navigate directly to several different locations. I will go ahead and click on the button. And notice the SQL Workshop is comprised of Object Browser, SQL commands, SQL scripts, utilities, and RESTful services. Also notice over on the right, you can select the default database schema for your SQL Workshop session. I currently only have one schema available. However, if you have more than one schema available, you may choose that from the select list and click Set. Notice on the right that you have several different shortcuts for creating different objects. In other demonstrations, we will take a look at using the Object Browser, locating the sample RESTful services, a demonstration on SQL commands, a demonstration on SQL scripts, and we will be taking a look at some of the Apex utilities. I'll also do a demonstration on the Object Browser. If you click on the drop-down arrow next to SQL Workshop, we can click on Object Browser. Notice that Object Browser does show you the schema that we're selecting from, and this is a select list, so if you have more than one schema, you can choose the schema from the drop-down, and all of the different objects will refresh according to the schema that you are pointing to. And notice that it does default to looking at different tables. You can also look at views, indexes, sequences, types, packages, procedures, functions, triggers, materialized views, and SOTA collections. Now, if you wanted to look at the data inside one of the tables, you could go ahead and click on the table. For instance, if I go down to EMP and click on that, you'll notice that the page does populate with a description of all of the columns and their data types, whether or not those can contain a null, whether or not they have a default, and will also display which columns form your primary key. You can also take a look at the data. You can also edit this data by clicking on the appropriate edit link. You can delete the data. You can also cancel. And notice that you can write a query against this as well. So what you can do in this case is choose which columns you would like. And you can designate an order by clause. And then you can select a query button. And you notice that the data results is returned. Notice you can also download this data. And if you click on download, it will allow you to go ahead and save that as a CSV file. There are several other options that you can choose from this drop-down here. And to navigate back, you can click on cancel. And that will take you back to the original view of what the data looked like. Now, if you wanted to go in and modify anything, you do have the options over here of creating new objects, creating new tables, new views, new indexes, or you can go in and edit the table by adding columns, modifying columns, renaming columns, dropping them, rename the table, copy the table, drop it, truncate, create lookup table, and create an application. And I will also show you how to navigate to RESTful services. In RESTful services, there are a number of different demonstration components already created, and you can go in and learn about those just by navigating there and looking at what's already created. If you click on the arrow next to SQL Workshop and navigate to RESTful services, you will notice that it tells us that the schema is not registered with Oracle RESTful Data Services. And again, it tells us the schema has not been registered with Oracle RESTful Data Services, RESTful Data Services. To register the schema, click Register Schema with ORDS. We'll go ahead and click on the button. You'll notice that this allows us to enable RESTful access and allows us to list the schema alias. Notice that this tells us we are editing the alias for the workspace's default schema. Setting this alias will also change the path prefix at the workspace level. This will affect the URL for any Apex-based RESTful services you may have defined. And we will go ahead and click on Save Schema Attributes. Now, before I click on that button, I just wanted to point out that it does default to installing the sample service. And that's where you can get the sample services that you can learn from or use in order to build your own sample services. So we'll go ahead and click on Save Schema Attributes. And you notice now that we have a dashboard that tells us access status is enabled and Total number of modules is 1, total privileges 3, total roles 4, and you'll notice that it shows us the module status and the module security reports here. At that point, you can come down and take a look at the modules. You'll notice that we have a sample module called Oracle Example HR. If you expand that, you'll notice that we have several different sample templates. And you'll notice that these templates have one or more different resource handlers. In this case, this one has the get HTTP method. And you can expand those in order to see what handlers are created for the different templates. Some of these have more than one, as I mentioned. So these are meant for you to have some samples to learn from so that you can go in and create your own RESTful data service objects.